Welcome to Midnight Casebook, where every shadow hides a secret and every mystery begs to be solved. Tonight, we unravel the chilling tale of the Lark behind the furnace, a Father Brown mystery, a fan-made story paying homage to the brilliance of G.K. Chesterton's legendary detective. We'd love to have you along for this enigmatic journey. Drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from, share your theories, and if you spot any inconsistencies, don't hesitate to call them out. Your keen eyes and sharp minds help us craft even more captivating mysteries in the future. Chapter 1. The Guest Who Never Took Tea. The clock struck 8 as rain lashed against the windows of the old Whitfield Manor, a stately home that stood as an ivory sentinel against the tumultuous night. An ominous chill seeped into the atmosphere, curling through the draping ivy and the untamed garden. In the heart of the manor, Lord Whitfield lay sprawled across the thick, rugged carpet of his study, lifeless and devoid of the aristocratic air he'd once commanded. The heavy oak door to the room was locked from the inside, an enigma wrapped in shadows that stirred the hearts of the villagers of St. Mary's. Father Brown's breath condensed in the damp air as he observed the chaotic scene. It was said the good Lord had collapsed while preparing for tea, a ceremony he never compromised, especially with his esteemed guest, a scholar of repute from London. Yet here was the cruel reality. A man who appreciated the subtleties of life now lay motionless. The sight twisted Father Brown's heart, a reminder of mortality's fickle hand. "Not the way I pictured my first visit to Whitfield Manor," came an anxious voice from the side. Philip Bartley, the guest in question, stood in the doorway, his tie askew as he wrung his hands nervously. "I swear, Father, I hadn't the slightest intention of—" His words faltered, his complexion as pale as the aged wallpaper. "Of what, my dear Philip?" Father Brown inclined his head ever so slightly, allowing his shrewd, hazel eyes to bore into the younger man's disturbed facade. "You didn't intend to witness this tragedy?" "No, that's not it at all," Bartley protested, his eyes darting around the room as if hoping to find answers within its confines. "I didn't even hear a sound. He stumbled over his words. "We were discussing books, and I stepped out for just a moment to—" "To what?" Father Brown interjected gently, sensing the young man's distress. "The rain was hardly a welcoming companion for a man of your literary inclination. I thought I might check the library, take a brief look. Lord Whitfield's collection is renowned, isn't it?" He swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the door frame. "But when I returned, I found the door locked. I knocked, and then, well—" He broke off, his voice dissolving into a ghastly whisper. Father Brown surveyed the room, aware of what small yet significant details spoke volumes. The half-open manuscripts on Whitfield's desk lay testament to his unfinished thoughts, and the freshly cut tea leaves in the polished silver pot seemed to hold the bitter taste of irony. "It appears the weather has conspired to steal both tea and life this evening," Father Brown remarked, his expression paradoxically calm amidst the tragedy. "Perhaps he was unwell," Bartley suggested, his brow furrowed. "He'd been complaining of headaches lately. I overheard him discussing it with his housekeeper." "A sensible precautionary action to forego stimulating conversation, you might think," Father Brown replied, letting the pieces twist in his mind. "But another thing intrigues me. Why did he not raise the alarm when he felt ill?" Before Bartley could respond, footsteps echoed in the corridor. It was Miss Clara, Lord Whitfield's housekeeper, her eyes swollen and red. "I can't believe this has happened. He was such a good man," Father Brown prompted, knowing her fondness for her employer would lead to either defense or denial. Yes, and so kind. He'd never bear a grudge. She stammered. This is incomprehensible. I was just... Just what? The priest pressed gently. He needed to connect the lines this tragedy had drawn. Just tending to him? No, I was down in the kitchen, making preparations for dinner. She hesitated, her guilt showcasing itself as the tremor of her lips. He'd wanted something special, but I didn't realize he needed me. Preparations? The ground floor appears eerily silent, Miss Clara, Father Brown replied, casting a sly glance at Philip. But you mentioned headaches. Could it be that Lord Whitfield consumed something that agitated him? Perhaps the tarts, she offered, grasping at straws. I made them myself. But Did he have a specific allergy or a related crutch to favor? Father Brown interrupted, already deducing a plethora of possibilities. Not that I know of. But her hesitation hung thick in the air, an unwavering sign of hidden anxiety. Then let's not linger on what we do not know. Father Brown stepped back and surveyed the locked door. I believe I must take a closer look. Philip's voice trembled. But Father, the door is locked. Are you sure it's wise? Father Brown smirked faintly, a glimmer of determination igniting in his eyes. It is precisely the locked door that serves as fact, but also as a symptom of greater mystery. A few moments later, Father Brown took out a slim piece of wire and deftly manipulated the lock. With a decisive click, the door swung open. The room unfolded its secrets, yet the air remained thick and lingering, charged with despair. It was then they spotted it, a letter splayed open on the desk, his bold calligraphy half hidden by the newspapers strewn atop it. Without a word, Father Brown picked it up, his brow furrowed tighter, reading every line with deliberate awareness. As he deciphered the words, something akin to shock flared on his features. What is it? Clara breathed, stepping closer. There is an urgency here, he murmured, almost to himself. Lord Whitfield was warning someone who had betrayed him. Someone he could no longer trust. Someone very close. Philip's face drained of color. But who? He asked, his familiarly anxious tone escalating. Therein lies the question, Father Brown replied cryptically, folding the letter away. Clara's wide eyes darted to Philip, a sudden surge of accusation darkening her features. Philip, you were very close to him. Too close, perhaps. Clara, don't say such things. Quiet, I am curious about what avoided. The tea entirely, Father Brown said, his mind weaving the narratives of perilous human intricacies. Before Philip could argue, Father Brown turned to face them both. Here's where the truth must lay bare. The next tea we brew will require more than leaves and water. It will demand honesty. The rain rattled against the windows, drowning out any chance of deceit, as Father Brown absorbed the ominous implications of the evening. Outside, the village lay blanketed in darkness and dread, and he could feel that this was merely the beginning of an unfolding darkness within St. Mary's. The truth was out there, but time was of the essence. Someone had hidden a deadly secret, and the tea would not be the only thing to spill. As the tension thickened, Father Brown turned, casting his thoughts into the storm. Knowing that the answers were but a whisper away, each thread pulling him closer to a resolution he could already sense hovering just out of reach. Chapter 2. The Imperfect Confession. The rain had not let up, clattering against the high window panes of Whitfield Manor as if echoing the turmoil within. The air was thick with unease, mingling with the scent of wet earth and the faint trace of Earl Grey that lingered in the room, reminding everyone present of the ritual that had been so tragically disrupted. Father Brown stood, eyes narrowed, as the tremors of the past hours weighed heavily in the air like a storm cloud poised to burst. Without warning, the distant sound of hurried footsteps approached, their rhythm quickened by urgency. The study door swung open with a reverberating creak, revealing a figure disheveled and visibly shaken. It was Gerald Knox, no stranger to the villagers, known for his quiet demeanor and reluctance to engage in confrontation. Tonight, he appeared a disheveled spectre, his hair matted and his clothes damp, like he had emerged from a tempest of his own creation. "Father Brown," he stammered, his voice cracking under the weight of panic. I need to talk. It's dreadful. What's happened? I can't hold it in any longer." Father Brown turned slowly, intrigued and cautious. "Why, Mr. Knox, what brings you here in such a tremor of dread?" Trembling, Gerald stepped forward, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I did it," he blurted out, his hands trembling violently. "I killed him. Lord Whitfield, I couldn't help it." The words hung in the air, thick as the fog outside, and Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as Philip staggered back against the wall. "What do you mean you killed him?" Philip burst forth, disbelief etched across his features. Gerald was visibly wilting under their scrutiny, his gaunt visage pale as moonlight refracted through clouds. "It was the vision," he gasped, clutching his temples as if straining to ward off some invisible weight. "I saw him. He was surrounded by shadows. They were beckoning. I couldn't stop myself." "The shadows prompted you?" Father Brown calmly probed, his voice steady, a sharp contrast to the man's frantic admission. "And what, may I ask, did they compel you to do?" "I saw him suffer." Gerald's voice rose to a near shriek, his eyes wide with an inner horror. I was overwhelmed. I thought I could save him. I thought if I forced him to see the truth, to see how darkened his soul had become, maybe he'd live. But instead, you took his life," Father Brown finished, his tone measured, holding steady ground amidst the chaos. "Tell me, Gerald, what were these truths you sought to impart?" Gerald took a shuddering breath, finding a semblance of composure. There were whispers in town, things he had done, deals made in secret, friendships betrayed. I confronted him about the expansion of the estate. He was poisoning the land with his greed. But he didn't want to hear it. He raged at me. I felt as if the shadows wrapped around me, weaving lies into my mind. I couldn't stop it. Father Brown's brow furrowed as Gerald spoke, piecing the fragments of the man's fragile psyche with patience. "Yet there's a gap in your tale," he noted softly. "You say you could not help yourself, yet did you truly act of your own volition? Or could it be that a moment of passion led you to a graver sin?" Gerald trembled, but Father Brown pressed on. "Did you possess anything with you at the moment that could have ended his life?" "I brought a knife," he blurted, panic lacing his confession. "A gift from my father, for luck, because I believed I could make him listen. But he was dead before I knew what had happened." Father Brown raised an eyebrow, storing the new information away like threads in a tapestry. "Interesting. A knife used for a conversation, unhinged by fear and madness. Yet the killer often refuses to acknowledge the premeditated intent buried beneath frenzy. Did you really think this knife would cease his heart?" The trembling intensified, Gerald's eyes darting, unable to meet their steely gaze. "No, Father, I sensed the darkness closing in. It wasn't me, it was the shadows. They fed on my thoughts, exiled reason," Clara interjected, her voice trembling. "You say you saw shades, but did you not find them swimming in your own frenzy?" As tensions mounted, Father Brown's mind flickered with the weight of Gerald's confession. His heart knew the workings of the soul all too well, veering toward darkened paths when belief twisted reality. But there were more layers to unpeel. Already, doubt began to drum within him. "Let us take a different path for a moment," Father Brown continued. "You mentioned whispers, tales in town. Do you not think they warrant examination? Who were these individuals that fed your confusion?" "I don't know," Gerald lashed out, desperation leaking through. "I heard them as I lay awake at night. But they suggested someone very close to him, someone he trusted." A spark ignited within Father Brown. Someone he trusted? He turned to Clara, who shifted uneasily, excitement mingling with fear. "What do you know of Lord Whitfield's associations? Who was closest to him outside this room?" The colour drained from Clara's face. "I only know of the book club he hosted and the scholars who partook. They often spoke in hushed tones. They spoke of debts, of favours owed." "Debts, you say?" Father Brown interjected, nudging her toward the revelation he sensed teetering, just shy of the edge. But had any had a more tangible or nefarious purpose? Before she could reply, an urgent knock rattled the doorframe, stolen breath hitching in their throats. As the door creaked open, a constable stepped inside, his uniform dappled with rain, as he eyed the scene with practiced wariness. "Father Brown, we've found a parcel addressed to Lord Whitfield. The contents are troubling." In that instant, Clara and Philip's eyes widened as Father Brown's deliberate gaze darted toward the constable. "Let's have it here," he urged, his heart quickening. The parchment's secrets could very well chain the unfortunate confessors to the fate they so desperately tried to evade. The constable handed over the letter, waterlogged and crumpled, revealing hasty scrawls concealed by droplets. The handwriting was familiar and jolted Father Brown's senses. It pinned down a connection only murmured in hushed tones, a name that threatened the fabric of loyalty that tied the village together. As he unfolded it, the echoes of an old vendetta began to ferment in his mind. "What circumstances lie buried shall see the light exposed," he murmured softly, feeling the weight of inevitability. The aura shifted palpably, raw anguish rising within the four walls. The tension held them like a vice, every heartbeat amplifying the urgency as they awaited the revelation of names hidden beneath layers of secrets and treachery. Father Brown raised his gaze, deep in contemplation, as he looked at Gerald, Clara, and Philip. Truth, it seems, has a way of revealing itself, and this confession, while imperfect, may just unravel the ties that bind us all to this tragic demise. The shadows have spoken, but the light is yet to shine. With steady resolve, he turned, ready to unravel the entwined misdeeds lurking within the frosted walls of Whitfield Manor, sensing that they would unearth not just the truths of Lord Whitfield's demise, but the very darkness lurking within the heart of St. Mary's itself. As the flickering lamplight danced restfully, he could feel that they were never far from another confession, one that held a deeper darkness than any of them could yet grasp. The rain intensified outside, but inside the manor it was far worse. The storm of human drama and turmoil brewed thick and strong, and as Father Brown held the letter firmly in his grasp, The next chapter of their fates hung precariously, awaiting to be unleashed. Chapter 3. A Study of Alibis. The rain drummed relentlessly against the windows of Whitfield Manor, holding an almost hypnotic rhythm that echoed the tumultuous emotions flaring within. The room felt charged, tense with the weight of unspoken words and undisclosed secrets, each tick of the grandfather clock amplifying the electricity of unease in the air. Father Brown stood near the hearth, the flickering flames casting shadows on his face, his mind whirling with the threads of the evening's confessions. Gerald Knox's vulnerable outburst had exposed more than a mere admission of guilt. It had illuminated hidden motives, the nuances of suspicion creeping darkly in every corner. Suddenly, there was a hesitant knock on the door before Clara tentatively entered, her face pale and freckled with droplets of rain, worry etched across her brow. "Father, is there any news?" she began, but the words quickly faltered as she caught the apprehensive death grip of Gerald's trembling hands. "Only inquiries, and so many suspicions, Clara," he replied gently, maintaining his calm demeanor. Despite the swirling vortex of chaos, just waiting to be unraveled. Tonight, we delve deeper into the heart of mystery, to understand who truly was where at the time of Lord Whitfield's untimely demise. Philip followed closely behind Clara, shaking off his wet overcoat with agitation. "You suspect all of us, don't you?" His voice had a bite, a hint of insecurity gnawing behind the bravado. "Especially after Mr. Knox's outburst. Surely we cannot all be wrapped in this web of treachery." Father Brown held Philip's gaze, the depth of his dark eyes betraying nothing but patience. "Not all are guilty, Philip, but many have something to hide. We must begin by evaluating each alibi surrounding the time of the murder." A note of defiance entered Philip's voice as he retorted, "But how can we? We cannot simply interrogate each guest like criminals. Consider it less an interrogation, dear boy, and more a call to the truth," Father Brown replied calmingly. "You were present at the last tea. Every story will illuminate different aspects of our shared narrative." He gestured toward the deep mahogany door, revealing the long corridor that led to the drawing room, where others still lingered in whispered fears, their eyes darting toward the shadows of the manor. "Let's begin with Miss Rosewood, I believe." Clara nodded nervously, glancing at Gerald, whose pallor had intensified into a nearly ghostly sheen. They all seemed to share a collective breath of trepidation. As they ventured into the dim corridor, the floorboards creaked softly under, their weight harmonizing with the pitter-patter of rain. In the drawing room, surrounded by heavy drapes and candlelight reflecting off the gleaming furniture, Miss Rosewood sat, her elegant frame relaxed, but brows knit with concern. She seemed like a trapped bird, but the fierce intelligence in her hazel eyes betrayed a deeper conflict. "Come in, Father Brown," she urged, her voice a delicate whisper. "I heard dreadful news and waited anxiously for your arrival." "Miss Rosewood," he began, observing her contemplative expression, "may I inquire about your whereabouts during the unfortunate incident? We need to piece together the evening as respectfully as we can." Her countenance did not falter as she replied, "I was in the conservatory, tending to the shrubbery. Lord Whitfield had a penchant for rare plants, and I helped gather some for his collection." "And if I may," Father Brown interjected, "was there anyone who may corroborate this alibi?" Setting her chin, a flicker of determination ignited in her gaze. "Only the head gardener, Mr. Archibald. He is aware of my task, and the stable boy may have detected my presence when fetching water." Father Brown nodded slowly. Then we must seek Mr. Archibald for confirmation. But tell me, did you witness anything unusual at the estate that night? The echoes of the past often cloud the present, Father, she replied thoughtfully. Lord Whitfield was reclusive and not without enemies. I sensed he was avoiding a confrontation that night, but I did not pry into his affairs. Turning thoughtfully, Father Brown directed Clara. Shall we find Mr. Archibald? He noted her nervous fidgeting, the way she bit her lip, and pressed further, sensing the depths of her worry. What troubles your mind, dear Clara? I saw Miss Rosewood and Lord Whitfield arguing just before the guests arrived for the tea, she confessed, her voice a mixture of fear and revelation. I was discreet, but they seemed caught in a tempest of words. The implications weighed heavy in the air. An argument? And did you hear what it was about? He prodded gently, hoping to knit this into the fabric of the larger mystery. She hesitated, her eyes flitting to Miss Rosewood before whispering, I could not catch the details. But there was fire in Miss Rosewood's voice. Something about secrets. Father Brown's thoughts churned with complexities, yet as he turned to leave, something stopped him. The disturbing absence of the household servant Martha, who had served during the tea and was now nowhere to be found. Miss Rosewood, he began, fixing her with an intense gaze, you mentioned the gardener, but what of the staff? Martha was here, yet we haven't seen her since. Miss Rosewood hesitated, her moment of surprise quickly masked. She was tending to the kitchen. I am afraid she does not keep good company, often slipping out during the evening round. Then we must seek her out, he insisted, his deductive instincts heightening. Martha could provide valuable insight. She would see and hear more than she lets on. As the three stepped away, the spirit of intrigue thickened. The rain lashed harder, rattling the windows like a warning. Father Brown's heart raced with the urgency of the unraveling mystery. Each untruth, whispered through the shroud of storms, tugged at the edges of his conscience. Let us proceed to the kitchen, he said resolutely, for within the ebb and flow of alibis lies the treacherous current of truth. But the earth shifted beneath them, as a faintly muffled exclamation echoed through the manor's corridors, shattering their focus. It came from the library, a place of secrets and treasures, now potentially a den of horrors. Stay close, Father Brown commanded, leading with purpose as he reached for the handle to the library door, anticipation thrumming under his skin. Whatever revelation awaited beyond that threshold promised to tip the scales further into shadow or light, and he felt each heartbeat swift with the danger in the air. As the door creaked open, a figure loomed in the darkness, gripped in the act of tearing something out of the very depths of the library's shelves. Father Brown's breath hitched in his throat as recognition flooded him. It was not just a pile of books, but something far darker, cradled under the figure's arm. Who goes there? He called out, his eyes narrowing as they adjusted to the dim light, ready to unveil the next layer of the growing enigma that lay before him in Whitfield Manor. A tapestry woven with betrayal, secrets, and a looming fate that threatened to ensnare them all. As silence blanketed the room, he felt the icy fingers of fate. Whatever happened next would ripple through their lives forever. Chapter 4. The Will in the Vicar's Study. The rain lashed mercilessly at the windows of Whitfield Manor, each drop a harbinger of turmoil, mirroring the chaos that stirred within its walls. Father Brown's heart quaked with anticipation as he pushed the heavy door to the library open wider, revealing not only the figure, but the hastily overturned books scattered across the floor. A female figure cloaked in shadows jerked back at the sound, her frail body trembling against the mass of ancient books, and for a fleeting moment, Father Brown believed he could see panic flash across her pale features. "Martha," he breathed, recognizing the housemaid from their earlier discussions. Her wide, tormented eyes darted toward the remnants of fallen parchment and crumpled letters spilling from her grasp. "What are you doing here?" I, she stammered, her voice taut with fear. "I was just tidying up, Father." "Tidying?" Gerald exclaimed, stepping closer and revealing the growing tension in his voice. "You've thrown half the library into disarray. What were you looking for?" Martha's lips tightened, and with a feeble flicker of indignation, she tried to straighten her apron. "Nothing. Just some papers from old parish meetings. Lord Whitfield often received them here, you see." Father Brown exchanged a meaningful glance with Clara, who stood nearly as still as the shadowy corners, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Old papers, you say? But perhaps there's more," Father Brown replied, his tone shifting as he edged further into the room, examining the scattered items on the floor. Dust lingered in the air, heavy with secrets long ago hidden. Gerald nodded, stepping forward and picking up a weathered envelope. "This one is addressed to Lord Whitfield," he said, holding it gingerly as if it might dissolve between his fingers. Father Brown leaned in, observing the erratic scrawl that was indeed familiar. Too familiar, he thought, as he connected it to the letter received in the storm earlier that evening. "Perhaps we are on the cusp of uncovering something vital," he murmured, his brow furrowing as he approached Martha. "Tell me, was Lord Whitfield concerned about his will?" She bit down on her lip, glancing toward the doorway as if expecting someone to lurk there. "He mentioned an important decision to be made, yes, but I wouldn't know details, Father. The manor is filled with whispers. Secrets breed in dark corners." "Secrets that fester when untended," Clara interjected, her voice breaking through the tension. "The village is brimming with speculation about the old lord's death. Could it be possible that someone here was protecting their interests?" "A truth emerging like the dawn," Father Brown interjected thoughtfully, glancing again at the envelope. "If a will is missing, there are potential beneficiaries, and in this village there are only enemies." He gestured for Martha to move back. "We cannot allow fear to cloud our quest for answers. It is more than just Lord Whitfield's possessions at stake. It's the entire fabric of this community." "Then we must find that will," Clara enthused, the spark of determination lighting her features. "There could be a way to shed light on the motives surrounding Lord Whitfield's death." "Yes, but we're not entirely clear on what's been lost yet, are we?" Father Brown mused. "It may be hiding in plain sight." He turned towards the shelves looming over them, rich with unyielding history and potential. Dust motes danced in the beam of flickering lamplight, as he let his eyes glide over the old books and their spines, resting on a particular section labeled Parish Records. "Father, let me have a look," Gerald said, his curiosity piqued as he shuffled past and began sifting through the lower shelf. He pulled out a few tattered covers, but recoiled when another consumer of the magic kept in books sank within the shadows. "No, nothing. All mysteries, no answers." Father Brown's intuition probed, knotted in his gut. "The records may not yield the will itself, but if old parchments hold testament, we can unearth insights into Lord Whitfield's ambitions or fears." His fingers grazed the paper-bound parchments one by one, collecting dust since the manor had been built. Suddenly, Clara gasped, pointing toward a tome momentarily obscured from view. "Father, look, under the corner of that shelf." A burst of recognition blossomed in Father Brown's mind as he retrieved the book, Old Testament manuscripts, and flipped through pages, eager for the revelation. Folded within the pages lay an envelope identical to the one in Gerald's hand. "This is odd," Father Brown remarked, his brow furrowing in thought. "Is it truly possible that the will was hidden in a book like this?" "Perhaps it's more than a simple hiding spot," Gerald mused, his excitement mingling with concern. "If there was a will, who may have known about it, or cared so much that they would kill to possess it?" Martha's eyes grew wide again. "I overheard Lord Whitfield talking late one night. He spoke of betrayal, the will being a weapon." "Water's edge in a raging conflict," Father Brown whispered, echoing a feeling that had landed him amidst this tangled web of intrigue. Beneath the genteel surfaces, the heart harbors tumultuous currents. We need to act with haste. If someone is trying to destroy evidence, their interests may be overriding not only their morality, but also the community's welfare. The realization cut through the air, and within that moment, the atmosphere thickened. Clara voiced the thoughts clinging in the shadows. If hidden motives are intertwining with the sacred and financial, who, among us, will lash out when threatened? Suddenly, another figure appeared in the doorway, Philip, leaning against the frame with a knowing look in his eyes. "What are you all doing back here? Shouldn't you be in the drawing room, discussing alibis?" Father Brown's heart quickened again, sensing a turn in the tale. "Ah, Philip, just on the brink of discovery, you stumbled in as if summoned. Tell me, did you notice anyone acting oddly while you were in the other room?" A silence stretched taut within the library's cloistered air, and then Philip crossed his arms, his gaze sharpened. "The tension wrapped around the drawing room tonight smothered everyone, but I did see Miss Rosewood leave swiftly, her face veiled in worry. Concealed truths will unravel when shadows fall," Father Brown murmured, casting his gaze around the papers scattered across the floor. "Looks like we are not the only ones seeking after concealed letters tonight." Just as the weight of that sentence sank amidst the shadows, a loud crash echoed through the manor, rattling the very walls around them. Father Brown's heart raced. Something crucial was unraveling before them, like the tapestry of their shared existence. "Quick, follow me," Father Brown commanded. The storm of secrets demanded resolution. They could not curtail their quest for truth. He strode purposefully from the library, each step echoing the urgency and danger they now faced as they raced to answer the lingering question that loomed overhead, as dark and foreboding as the storm outside. What shadowy truths awaited their arrival at the vicar's study? Chapter 5. The Lark Behind the Furnace. The shriek of the wind rattled the windows of Whitfield Manor, as if a restless soul sought passage through the grey storm. Father Brown paused momentarily, grounding himself with the conviction to face what lay ahead. Behind him, Clara and Gerald marched forward, stepping through the dusty air charged with secrets. The gnarled corridors of the manor twisted and turned like a maze, and their footfalls echoed ominously, a steady pulse in the midst of uncanny silence. The air thickened with unease, laden with anticipation. As they entered the vicar's study, the torchlight flickered against the dark mahogany furniture, casting fleeting shadows like spectres of the past. Father Brown's keen eye took in the remnants of a life once vibrant. Books stacked haphazardly, the faint scent of must lingering, and an unsettling quietness cradling hidden truths. "Look for anything out of place," he instructed, the urgency palpable in his voice. Gerald knelt beside the fireplace, where the flames had long since dwindled to embers, and began to sift through the hearth's ashes. Something glinted beneath the soot, a feather, radiant against the drab surroundings. "Father," he called, his voice crackling with intrigue. Father Brown approached, kneeling beside Gerald to examine the feather. It was distinctly unusual, broad and colorful, unlike any common fowl, the kind hatched from mundane origins. It bore the hues of a lark, radiant with ambers and blues that whispered of tales untold. "Where did you find this?" he asked, trying to piece together the significance it might hold. "Right here, behind the furnace," Gerald replied, brushing the dust from the feather as he handed it to Father Brown. "Strange location for such a thing, don't you think?" "Indeed," Father Brown mused, turning the feather in the light. "It reeks of symbolism, possibly an old family feud born of jealousy or rivalry." He rose, met with Clara's steely gaze. Martha mentioned dark whispers. Could this be an echo of an unresolved grievance? The door creaked open, and Philip strolled in, his demeanor relaxed, almost too relaxed. "What curiosities have ensnared you this time?" he asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. But his eyes betrayed a nervous flicker as they fell on the feather. "Something from the estate, perhaps?" Father Brown challenged, his voice stern. "A feather speaks volumes. It belongs to someone of significance, doesn't it?" Philip feigned ignorance, shaking his head, but his bravado dissolved under Father Brown's unwavering scrutiny. "A common bird, hardly worth the fuss." "Common, you say?" Clara stepped forward, her voice dripping with skepticism. "This doesn't seem ordinary for a place steeped in old blood. We're trying to track Lord Whitfield's will, and you surely must be aware of the intensity of strife surrounding his death." Philip's stance tightened, eyes darting toward the feathery clue before casting a guilty glance toward the shadowy corners of the room. "Look, I'm just trying to keep out of it," he muttered, but Father Brown could read the lie etched on his features. "Keep out of what?" Father Brown pressed, his voice laced with gravity. "Do you believe this feather, an obvious sign of deeper issues, has nothing to do with our inquiries?" Suddenly, a tremor of vulnerability sliced through Philip's bravado. "All right, fine," he snapped, the air thickening with tension. "I know of a family feud. Lord Whitfield spoke of it, but I hadn't expected it would hold Leviathan's secrets." Clara leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "What secrets? What feuds?" Philip hesitated, his thoughts racing beneath a facade of indifference. "The Felton family, old rivals of the Whitfields, if I recall. Jealousy spirals like a tempest within their bloodline. It's whispered they may have old debts, and debts can lead to desperate actions." "They want something back," Gerald interjected, the machinery of deduction functioning at full capacity. "But what? A claim over the estate? A family rivalry gone too far?" Father Brown held up the feather, sensing the darkness it invoked. "This feather, a symbol, a calling card. It indicates an unseen player maneuvering in the aftermath of tragedy. Tell me, Philip, have you encountered anyone suspicious in the past few days, perhaps wandering near the manor?" Philip swallowed hard, the flicker of recognition dawning within him. "Last week, I caught a glimpse of a figure. Dark coat, hat pulled low. He lingered just outside the estate, then vanished when I turned the corner. I thought nothing of it, truly." "But now," Father Brown encouraged, pressing deeper, "now, do you see him in a different light?" Philip's jaw clenched tight, the tension palpable. What if the Feltons have a henchman, someone angling for the will? "Precisely," Father Brown replied, a sharpness in his voice. "And we must act quickly before that figure emerges fully from obscurity." His mind raced with deductions, weaving together the vibrant feather and the shadows of the past, like threads in a grand tapestry. The wind howled outside, frantic and questioning. The storm had escalated, a perfect metaphor for the chaos that had unfolded. Father Brown turned once more to the hearth. If the feather behind this old furnace signifies more than simple loss, we need to understand its implications thoroughly. As he peered deeper into the graying shadows of the study, an inkling of an idea sparked, a realization of unfolding motifs, long-hidden animosities fueling this grim drama. Clutching the lark's feather, he felt its history, and with it, a chilling sense of urgency settled over him. Suddenly, the crack of thunder echoed through the manor, punctuating their muted deliberations with shattering clarity. An external force rippled through the estate, releasing the tides of danger. Father Brown inhaled sharply as a new determination seized him. Something sinister was brewing, a storm of vengeance that threatened to engulf them all. And as a new piece of the narrative crystallized in his mind, he felt it was only the beginning. Before him lay layers of intrigue, each hint leading down treacherous paths. "We need to confront the Feltons," he declared resolutely, "and unmask whoever lurks behind their plot, and retrieve the will before it vanishes into shadows forever." A sharp knock rattled the door. Each figure in the study stiffened, tension curling in the air. Father Brown exchanged glances with Clara and Gerald, a shared understanding tightening their bond. They were now entwined within this deadly game. "Who's there?" Philip shouted apprehensively. The door creaked open, revealing Martha standing in the doorway, her face pale and drawn. In her hand, she clutched another envelope, one marked with the same erratic scrawl as the one Gerald had discovered. "I think," she panted, taking a moment to catch her breath, "I think I found something important." Father Brown's heart lurched in anticipation, a rush of intrigue surging through him. They were one step closer to uncovering the tangle of deceit wrapped around Whitfield Manor. "Then let's see what mysteries this reveals," he urged. As the envelope drew closer, a new layer was about to unravel. The game had shifted once again, and what lay within was bound to be as shocking as the storm surging outside. The quest for truth had ignited with renewed fervor, but the danger was now palpable. Who would be the next to face the storm? Chapter 6. Secrets Beneath the Surface. The sharp crack of thunder reverberated through the manor, shaking the dust from the rafters, as Father Brown leaned closer to the envelope Martha held, a sense of foreboding swirling about him. The flickering candlelight threw long shadows, distorting the lines of the room and drawing the tension tighter still. "What have you found?" he asked, his voice steady, despite the tempest raging outside. Martha's hands trembled as she handed over the envelope, its corners stained with age and smudged ink. "I found this in the library," she said, her breath coming in shallow bursts. "It was hidden in an old book, Lord Whitfield's personal journal. I thought it might shed light on some of the things he wrote about." Father Brown took the envelope, breaking the wax seal with a deliberate calmness that masked the rapid beating of his heart. Clara and Gerald leaned in, eyes widening as Father Brown pulled out a stack of yellowed papers, each one inscribed in Lord Whitfield's elegant hand. The air thickened with anticipation as the first pages revealed the unmapped territories of family history, whispers of secret loves and buried grievances. "I can barely read all this," Clara remarked, peering over Father Brown's shoulder. "What does it say?" "It speaks of love lost and struggles for power," he murmured, scanning the text. "There are accounts of a young woman named Lillian, who was deeply entwined with Lord Whitfield's life before they parted ways. Her story, it paints a portrait of betrayal woven through the very fabric of this family. "Martha, did you see anything else in the library?" Gerald pressed, his perceptive nature awakening with the thrill of unearthing complications. "Perhaps something that could tie Lillian to what's happening now." Martha shook her head slowly, eyes darting between the characters in their drama. "Only the whisper about her family, the Finches, who were estranged from the Whitfields due to some long-forgotten scandal. There was mention of a rivalry too, one that could run as deep as blood." "It's a tangled web," Philip interjected, his voice edged with anxiety. "What do you think is going to happen now? Is this Lillian the key to the murder? She must be the reason for all of this." Father Brown's attention shifted as he traced a delicate line of ink. Lillian Finch. They may have lost more than just love. The mention of rivalry may hint toward deeper motives behind the recent upheaval. Betrayal doesn't just vanish. It simmers beneath the surface, growing over time, waiting for the right conditions to flourish. As if agreeing with him, the wind howled like a mournful animal, causing a shudder to ripple through the group. A letter, a journal entry, and now this feather. The elements intertwine like fallen leaves caught in a gust. He paused, contemplating the implications. What power might the Feltons seek? What connection do they have with Lillian and her family's hidden past? A sudden crash from upstairs sent chills coursing through the group. "What was that?" Martha gasped, her eyes wide. "We should stay put." "No," Father Brown said firmly. "We must investigate, though we know the risks. Secrets lie scattered about this manor like scattered leaves, and with each step we take, we might uncover those who would prefer those secrets remain hidden." Bracing themselves against the storm, they ascended the grand staircase, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. As they reached the landing, the air grew heavy with an ancient anticipation, as if the house itself held its breath. They moved cautiously toward a door barely ajar, the atmosphere buzzing with the unclear threat inside. Father Brown pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit corridor lined with portraits of the Whitfield ancestors, their gazes both regal and accusatory. At the far end, light flickered, emanating from a small study. A sudden scuffle echoed, then silence. Heartbeats thundered against the backdrop of the storm, mingling with the palpable tension. Father Brown stepped inside, a cold fear prickling at the base of his spine. There, standing over a toppled desk, was none other than Philip, his fingers grasping a piece of parchment, eyes wide with shock. "Philip," Father Brown said, voice low and steady, "what are you doing here?" I thought I heard something," Philip stammered, holding up the parchment as though it were a snake ready to strike. "I was just looking for answers." Father Brown's gaze narrowed as he caught sight of freshly scattered papers, evidence of a hasty search. "Answers, you say?" he said, stepping closer. "Or questions that you're too afraid to voice?" Philip dropped the parchment, fear glistening in his eyes. "It's nothing to do with you. Get out of my way." But Father Brown was already examining the document. As he read, every line etched deeper into his mind, the realizations coiling around him like an unrelenting fog. This was no simple note. It detailed Lillian Finch's infatuation with Lord Whitfield, her heart torn asunder by the animosity of their families. The notes hinted at a secret meeting place, a place where long-lost sentiments may have festered into something dangerous. The Feltons, and those who inherited their anger, may still be coveting their old grievances, Father Brown deduced, directing his words at Philip, who had turned pale. You knew about the depths of this familial animosity. Philip's gaze faltered, and in that fleeting moment, Father Brown saw the flicker of shame flit beneath his bravado. You must understand, some families bury their histories. They were adamant for a reason. Gerald's voice rose sharply, and that reason may be a motive for murder. What will you do if the past comes to claim what it believes is owed? I won't answer for the sins of the fathers, Philip burst forth, his voice raw with emotion. But if word got out, if they find out I knew, a new realization struck Father Brown like a bolt of lightning. What do you fear more, Philip? Losing everything due to the past, or being hunted like a dog because old ghosts refuse to rest? Before Philip could respond, another crash reverberated through the manor, and the light flickered ominously. Father Brown turned to Clara and Gerald, feeling the ghostly weight of urgency in the air. We must leave now and confront the Feltons, he said defiantly, the sense of impending danger heightening. As they retraced their steps, the storm outside raged fiercer, matching the torrent of thoughts swirling through Father Brown's mind. The lark feather, the broken ties of love, the guilt caught between generations, all of it was a tapestry weaving darker than night. But the danger had not fully revealed itself yet, the threads tightening but faltering in the face of truth. And just as they moved to exit the corridor, the candlelight sputtered, casting their shadows long and ominous as the door slammed shut behind them, sealing them in with unanswered questions and burgeoning dread. Whatever we face next, we must unearth what lurks beneath, Father Brown whispered, feeling the chill of premonition in the depths of his heart. The she-killer's motive was not merely a shadow at their heels. They were part of an intricate pattern. And tonight, as the storm howled, he felt he was drawing closer to the heart of the matter. In that moment, everything mixed, past and present, agony and revelation. The secrets beneath the surface were rising like the tide, demanding to be seen, and they would have to confront whatever darkness awaited on the other side. Chapter 7. A Shadow at Matins. The spires of St. Barnabas's Church cut through the misty dawn, their silhouettes stark against the pallid grey sky. The air was thick with an unspoken urgency, the kind that clawed at the back of one's mind. Father Brown stood before the church's heavy oak doors, half open, letting in a breath of cool morning air. He sensed something was awry, the kind of feeling that settled like a shadow over the usual quiet anticipation of the morning service. Once inside, Father Brown surveyed the familiar faces of his congregation as they gathered for Matins. The soft murmurs of prayer mingled with the scent of damp wood and incense, yet a layer of tension rippled through the attendees, unseen but palpable. He greeted an elderly couple with a nod before taking his place behind the altar, trying to shake off the feeling that entangled his thoughts. As the service commenced, the soft rustle of pages turning and muffled whispers surrounded him like a cocoon. Father Brown's gaze drifted over the congregation, then settled on Clara, who sat toward the back, her expression more troubled than usual. His attention was soon drawn to Philip Felton, who stood awkwardly near the front. Today, Philip's countenance was not marked by his habitual bravado. Instead, he fidgeted, nervously eyeing the pews as if searching for a ghost among the living. Father Brown's intuition sharpened, his senses straining against the backdrop of hymnals and prayers. Something was brewing beneath the surface. As the service progressed, he caught the faintest hint of an exchange, a whispered conversation from two pews over. The voices were hushed, but bits trickled through the stillness like raindrops against a window pane. "She cannot find out. Not now," one voice murmured. The other answered, "But can we afford to let her get involved? You know what happened last time." Father Brown's pulse quickened. Instinctually, he leaned slightly forward, straining to catch every word that fluttered like a trapped bird through the air. The speaker's identity remained shrouded in the crowd, but the urgency of their exchange suggested profound secrets. He would not let it go unnoticed. The dark entanglements he'd witnessed in recent days at Whitfield Manor could very well have found roots in this close-knit community. Shifting from the altar, Father Brown's movements were a deliberate calm against an undercurrent of rising tension. He awaited the hymn to come to a close before stepping forward, casting a sweeping glance over the congregation as he began his sermon, words flowing like molten wax onto eager ears. Yet his thoughts lingered on that whispered conversation, the anguish behind it, the fear woven within. The service concluded serenely, but Father Brown knew this was not a time for the usual pleasantries. He sought out the two parishioners he had overheard, his intuition guiding him through the corridors of prayerful chatter. Finally, he spotted them, a woman in a grey shawl and a man with auburn curls, half turned toward each other at the back of the church, their expressions taut with emotion. "Excuse me," Father Brown said softly as he approached, concern etched in his brows. "I couldn't help but hear you speaking just before. It seemed important." The woman straightened, seemingly startled, while the man shot a glance around them as if the walls were listening. "It's nothing, Father," he replied hastily, his anxiety palpable. "Just a personal matter." Father Brown offered a gentle smile. Yet personal matters can often entangle with the broader community. "You are aware of the covenants we hold, don't you? The ties of this church unite us in truth." The woman's gaze darted away, but not before Father Brown caught the flicker of something deeper beneath her facade. "Please," she whispered urgently, "it's not what it appears to be." "Then let us speak of it, if it bothers you so," Father Brown pressed, his voice steady but insistent. "Secrets can fester if left unspoken." Before the man could reply, Philip strode up to them, his expression a mask of bravado. "I see you're interested in local gossip, Father," he interrupted with a strained smile. The man beside the woman turned rigid, his nervous fidgeting returning. "Gossip can lead to wonderful revelations, Philip," Father Brown replied evenly. "Perhaps you would like to share your thoughts on this matter?" Philip's eyes flickered with uncertainty, his bravado cracking under scrutiny. "It's probably just some old rivalry, family business. We wouldn't want to involve the church in private matters. A calculated risk." Father Brown considered this carefully. Old rivalries often sow the seeds of deeper conflicts, especially in families like the Feltons, who had already shown their entangled fears over the past weeks. And is it true that Lillian Finch's memory haunts these discussions? Father Brown had left the name hang in the air, as heavy as the clouds roiling beyond the church windows. The man turned pale, aware of the associations swirling around the name. The woman gasped at the mention, a strange mixture of recognition and dread etching her features. She doesn't need to be involved," the woman finally stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "And yet her shadows loom long over Whitfield Manor and beyond," Father Brown asserted, his gaze piercing into Philip's haunted eyes. "What is it that binds you all together?" A sudden flicker of movement caught Father Brown's eye. A figure at the back of the church slipped into the shadows, Martha, her face masked in uncertainty. She turned and fled, as if pursued by a spectre. Father Brown's instincts flared into action. He could not let her escape so easily, especially when the threads of this intricate web were beginning to tighten. "Excuse me," he said, turning sharply to follow her, leaving behind the lingering tension in the air. As he stepped into the drizzle of morning, he felt an urgent prickle at the nape of his neck. The shadow of the church loomed over him, a foreboding reminder of the darkness beneath the surface. Not just the weathered bricks of the building, but the secrets threatening to envelop the community. Martha's hurried footsteps splashed against the stone path as she slipped around the corner. "Martha," he called, forcing himself to quicken his pace. The rain had begun again, adding a rhythmic beat to the growing sense of urgency. "Stop!" he shouted, and she faltered, turning back with a frightened look. "You must let me explain," she said breathlessly, her hands clutching her shawl as if it could shield her from the storm, both outside and within. And then, as the droplets poured down, revealing the sheen of the polished cobblestones, Father Brown could clearly see the glint of something in her hand, a folded piece of paper, damp but unmistakable. "What do you have there, Martha?" he pressed, a sinking realization crashing over him. "It's a letter," she choked, "a letter from Lillian Finch." Directing her trembling hand towards him, she added, "I didn't know it was still here. I only meant to return it. I thought it might belong to the Feltons." Father Brown stepped closer, realization hitting him with the force of each raindrop. This piece of correspondence held potential clues that could unravel the conspiracy woven through Whitfield Manor and its inhabitants. Before he could ask for more details, a thunderous clap echoed through the grey sky above, and the world blurred into chaos. "We need to get inside," he urged, heart racing. "Let's seek refuge. There is much more at stake than mere familial pride." As they rushed back into the church, the shadows cast by rebellion and regret loomed larger with every step. In the far corner of the now quiet sanctuary, the whispered conversations he had overheard echoed with newfound meaning, and it struck him that the alliances formed in the shadows might bind their fates together in a way that transcended even death. What unexpected truths lay hidden in that letter? And as Martha's revelations melded with Philip's frantic anxiety, would the shadows that cloaked their alliances ultimately bring about redemption or destruction? Each question amplified the storm raging within him, an insistent reminder that darkness lay in wait. The secrets, he realized, were not just beneath the surface. They were woven through the very fabric of lives, so intertwined they might have been born from the same thread. The only question that remained was whether they could unravel it before it all spiraled out of control. Chapter 8. The Vanishing Path. A chilling gust of wind flickered through the burgeoning shadows of Whitfield Manor as Father Brown crossed its threshold, the damp air heavy with unease. He and Martha stepped cautiously into the grand foyer, the worn stones echoing their footsteps, a testament to countless secrets whispered within these walls. The flickering candlelight danced along the intricate carvings of the staircase, which loomed like a sentry, guarding against prying eyes. Martha clutched the damp letter tightly to her chest, her brow furrowed with trepidation. "We cannot linger," Father Brown urged, his voice low and steady. The storm that had burst forth outside intensified, rain lashing against the ancient windows like a persistent spectre, relentless in its attempts to breach barriers. "We must find that passageway." His instinct told him it was hidden somewhere within this estate, perhaps lying dormant until awakened by the very secrets it sheltered. As they moved deeper into the manor, Martha glanced at him, her apprehension palpable. What if they find out I'm here? What if they know I spoke to you? Come, Martha. Father Brown reached out, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The truth is worth any risk. Besides, I believe that letter may lead us to a greater understanding of Lillian Finch's disappearance. She took a decisive breath, and together they ascended the staircase that spiraled toward the second floor. Father Brown's mind was a relentless whirlpool. He recalled the whispered conversations from the church, the panic in Philip's eyes, and the way the woman in the pew averted her gaze. He felt that they were on the verge of uncovering a labyrinthine plot, where alliances twisted like the ivy, claiming the manor's exterior. I overheard something, Martha said suddenly, her voice barely audible above the sound of the rain. Just before I found you. It was in the drawing room. The Feltons were discussing a hidden way, but I couldn't catch much more than that. Father Brown stopped short, the faint echo of her words reverberating through his mind. A hidden way. Could they mean passages used for clandestine meetings? It would make sense, especially with Lillian's past. Martha's eyes widened, a spark of curiosity illuminating her fear. You think they might have used it? We must find out. Father Brown pushed forward, the shadows of the corridor looming ahead, cloaking them in uncertainty. They arrived at the door to the drawing room, its imposing wooden frame cracked with age. Father Brown grasped the handle and paused, sensing the weight of the moment. As he opened the door, a musty scent wafted over them. Dust motes floated in the dim light, revealing a space heavy with history and perhaps some darker truths. Framed portraits adorned the walls, their eyes seeming to follow Father Brown and Martha as they stepped inside. In the center of the room, a grand fireplace loomed, ashes settling like undisclosed secrets. Search for any signs of a passage, Father Brown instructed, and as Martha sifted through the scattered papers on the side table, he roamed the perimeter of the room, surveying the artwork with unstinting scrutiny. The fireplace felt cold and uninviting, as if it too had stories to tell, but it would take more than idle musings to invoke them. A soft gasp drew his attention. Martha stood frozen beside a mahogany cabinet, her hand hovering over an intricately carved panel. "Father, look! This seems out of place," she said, pressing the edge of the wood gently. With a barely audible click, a section of the wall slid aside, revealing a narrow passage cloaked in darkness, the air within stale and unwelcoming. Father Brown drew closer, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. "This must be it," he breathed, glancing at Martha's apprehensive face. "Are you ready?" She nodded, albeit hesitantly, and together they stepped into the dimly lit corridor. The wooden walls closed in around them like gnarled hands, and Father Brown ignited a match, its flickering light casting grotesque shadows flickering on the walls, revealing the cool, damp stone that had likely gone untouched for years. They made their way down the passage, each step echoing ominously. "Do you think Lillian was here?" Martha whispered, her anxiety transparent in the tremor of her voice. "It is certainly possible," Father Brown replied, his mind spinning with implications. "If the Feltons were involved, they might have hidden her here until they could orchestrate their next move." He paused, the shadows enveloping them, as he turned to study her. "But tell me, Martha, what do you truly know? That letter, what does it say?" She hesitated, her fingers clutching the edges of the paper painfully tight. "It was just a letter. Lillian wrote about needing to leave, something about the family being in danger, but I never read The entirety of it. I was too scared to confront whatever it contained. Father Brown's eyes narrowed with realization. Scared of whom? The Feltons? No, she stammered, swallowing her words like bitter pills. I was afraid of what I might find out about myself. I know little of my own family's ties to theirs. If your family is linked, the truth could change everything, Father Brown urged. We must reveal the contents of that letter, and soon. Their conversation was interrupted suddenly by a damp breeze that whipped through the passage, causing the candle's flame to flicker perilously. Father Brown steadied it, and as visibility waned, a faint glimmer at the end of the passage caught his attention. He hastened forward, fueled by a mix of dread and intrigue, Martha trailing closely behind. As they reached the end, the dim light revealed an old, rusted door. Father Brown's heart raced. Sensing that something significant lay beyond it, he pushed it open to reveal an abandoned room, littered with cobwebs and dusty remnants of gatherings long past. In the flickering light, something glinted defiantly from the far corner. An old typewriter, surprisingly intact. Father Brown moved closer, noticing a solitary sheet of paper, half inserted, words half formed, as if someone had been just moments from completing a thought. This could be essential, he murmured, squinting against the gloom to read the hastily scrawled lines. Father, wait, Martha gasped, suddenly pale. Someone's coming. The mason sound of hurried footsteps grew closer, cutting off their access to the passage through which they had come. Father Brown glanced at the typewriter, recognition flickering in his mind. We cannot be caught here. This room could hold the very answers we seek. In the fading light, as the echoes of heavy footsteps reverberated ominously in the corridor behind them, Father Brown's thoughts raced. He had barely started to piece together the enigma when more than shadows began converging upon them, figures that had lurked in the background now coming into the foreground. Quick, he urged, turning toward the window. We need to escape. As they edged toward the window, a muffled voice rose outside. They must be here. Check everywhere. Panic striking like a hammer. Father Brown felt a surge of urgency. This precarious moment could tumble them into irreversible darkness. And with that, he kicked open the window and gestured for Martha to go first. As she climbed out, he caught a glimpse of the figure passing just beyond the door, the unmistakable outline of Philip Felton. Just as Father Brown scrambled to follow her into the night, he caught sight of the typewritten sheet, fluttering precariously in the draft. With a last desperate grab, he secured the paper, its words promising revelations that could unravel the very fabric of the intertwined lives they had witnessed. Clutching its significance, Father Brown flung himself out into the pouring rain. The storm now a cacophony of sound as the chase began anew. He felt exhilarated by the pursuit of truth, yet haunted by the nagging realization that the more they uncovered, the deeper the darkness threatened to swallow them whole. As the shadows continued to close in around him, he knew the next steps held all the potential to either lead to redemption or doom them all to oblivion. The pathway ahead was uncertain, yet the most vital clue was concealed within his grasp. It was simply a matter of time before they set forth on the vanishing path of secrets and shadows. Chapter 9. The Cross in the Attic. The storm raged outside, rattling the ivy-clad walls of Whitfield Manor, as Father Brown climbed the creaking staircase to the attic. Every step echoed with a sense of foreboding. The robust timbers groaned and protested as if warning him of the secrets sealed within the old house. In his pocket, the typewritten sheet burned against his side, a harbinger of truths long shrouded in shadow. He had sworn to uncover the legacy of Lillian Finch and the entangled felons of the Felton family, but now something more sinister beckoned him up into the darkened heights of the manor. As he reached the attic door, its wood uneven and splintered, a glimmer of silver caught his eye in the faint candlelight. A crucifix, gently swaying as it hung from a beam, the intricate design ominous yet inviting. It was the very cross that Philip Felton had clutched during their last encounter, a testament to the Lord's final decisions. What is it about this symbol that had dictated so much, and why had it found a home here, amidst the dust and decay? Before he opened the door, he nodded to Martha, who had followed him, her expression taut with anxiety. "Whatever truth lies hidden in this manor," he whispered as he braced himself against the doorframe. "It resides in the connection between this cross and the secrets of Lillian Finch." With a purposeful shove, he pushed the door open. The attic revealed itself, a labyrinth of cobwebbed corners and forgotten trinkets. The shadows loomed like forgotten souls, twisting and whispering secrets of their own. The air carried a musty scent, filled with the weight of time. Father Brown stepped inside, glancing around for any signs of life or concealment. "Martha," he began, despite the unease that filled him, "this cross is symbolic. We must ponder its meaning, not just as a religious artifact, but also as the nexus of ambition, guilt, and perhaps even betrayal entwined in this family's history." Martha's gaze darted to the crucifix as she processed his words. But if the cross represents authority or power over the family, what would that mean for us? For Lillian? Father Brown moved with purpose toward the center of the attic, where a dusty old trunk sat forlornly. "It means we are approaching a confrontation," he replied, pulling the trunk open with a creak that echoed ominously. "This may contain what we need to piece together Lillian's fate." As he rifled through the contents, a few old documents caught his attention. One in particular, a faded letter sullied with age, throbbed with potential significance. The writing was meticulous, casting light on reprehensible decisions made by the Feltons regarding their dealings with Lillian, all interlinked with the crucifix's ominous presence. "Listen to this," Father Brown urged, motioning for Martha to come closer. "In the shadow of the cross, our decisions bear consequences beyond mortal reckoning. To protect our lineage, sacrifices are essential." Martha shivered at the implications, the fear apparent in her widened eyes. "Lillian knew, didn't she?" Martha mused, her voice trembling. "Maybe she found evidence of their sins." "No, she almost certainly did," Father Brown asserted, piecing it together before her eyes. "This letter was penned by a Felton, likely Philip's father. It insinuates that the very notions held sacred within the cross were somehow tarnished by the darkness that clung tightly to them." Suddenly, the creak of the attic door sent ice through his veins. Philip stood silhouetted in the doorway, his expression unreadable but intense. The moment disclosed a dangerous twist, tension coiling in the air like a noose. "What are you doing here?" Philip demanded, his voice low and menacing. "There are certain decisions that define a man, Philip," Father Brown countered, his voice steady, despite the unease flooding from the young man's aura. "And those decisions tether themselves to the very cross you have built your life around." As he raised his chin, the flickering light illuminated the anger burning beneath Philip's facade. With a sudden movement, Philip advanced, stepping further into the attic. "You know nothing of this family's burdens, of the cross we bear," he spat, eyes glinting with a mix of fear and wrath. "You think you can trespass and expose what should remain hidden?" "I'm here to reveal the truth," Father Brown pressed, unmoved. "Why did your family resort to sacrificing their own? What drove you to that decision?" He could sense the psychological turmoil boiling beneath the surface, a mixture of guilt and resentment that was just waiting to erupt. Martha shuffled back, edging toward the trunk, holding her breath as she assessed the escalating confrontation. "Philip," she said, barely above a murmur, "you can't—" "Stay out of this, Martha," Philip snapped, the pain raw in his voice. "You don't understand what lies at the core of this family's agony." His eyes flitted to the crucifix, seeming somehow alive, as if tethering his very soul into submission. Father Brown's gaze remained unwavering. "Is it pain you feel, Philip, or is it something else? Guilt? Regret? The realization that you have sacrificed too much already? The cross may have dictated your family's past, but it cannot dictate your future." With a sharp breath, Philip glanced toward the window, where the storm continued to rage outside, as if echoing the tempest within him. The faint crashing of rain against the roof seemed to align with his heartbeat, a growing crescendo of chaos. "Lillian's disappearance is entwined with this family, isn't it?" Father Brown probed, capitalizing on the moment of hesitation. "What must you confront in order to free yourself from the clutches of that cross? You've hidden her for too long." What do you know?" Philip interrupted, his voice cracking, vulnerability piercing through his bravado. Enough was enough. Father Brown suddenly strode forward, intent on clarifying the connection while the tension hung in the air. Too potent to ignore, too thick to cut. "Where is she, Philip? Is Lillian still alive? Is she tied to your family's dark legacy?" Before Philip could respond, a crash echoed from outside, and without warning, the power flickered, plunging the attic into darkness. Father Brown and Martha froze, hearts racing into the abyss of uncertainty as a chilling revelation sliced through the enveloping gloom. In the deep silence, as rain hammered above and shadows lengthened threateningly, Martha whispered, "Father, what if they never intended for her to leave? What if the cross was just the beginning of a much darker plot?" A menacing growl echoed, reverberating through the attic walls. With sheer urgency, Father Brown reached for Martha's hand. "We must discover the truth before it consumes us," he urged, sensing the urgency pulse dangerously through the room. And just then, a figure appeared at the attic door, a glint of silver reflecting the flickering candlelight, a glimmer of a second crucifix, not unlike the one that loomed over them, now raised in accusation. A gaunt face emerged from the shadows, one never before seen, a figure accentuating the gravity of their plight with a chilling smirk. "Looking for something?" the voice sneered. "A servant to the secrets bound in the wood and stone of Whitfield Manor." The tension was palpable as the weight of their shared truths bore down upon them, and the air snapped with expectation. In that moment, everything shifted. The line between salvation and doom blurred dangerously, and Father Brown knew the crossroads had been reached. "Find out what lies hidden in that trunk," Father Brown instructed Martha with steady resolve, unwilling to surrender to despair. "The truth is waiting to be unveiled," he added, determination igniting anew. And as darkness loomed ever closer, secrets twisted and turned in the silence around them. Each heartbeat, a countdown to what was bound to unfold next. What lay beyond those layers of deception? Would he find Lillian, or had the truth forged ties too strong to sever? The only reminder was the cross above, swaying ominously above the shadows that threatened to consume them. Little did they know, the revelations were but a few breaths away, and whatever lurked in the depths of the attic sang an echo of foreboding, a twisted hymn entwining destiny and deception in their hair-raising quest for answers. All the while, the rain continued to hammer, drowning the mournful whispers of the past. Chapter 10. The Weight of Truth. Just as the howling wind collided with the darkened windows of the attic, the figure in the doorway loomed like a ghost from another time, with a sinister glint illuminating his gaunt features. Philip had stepped aside, his bravado now fraying, leaving the intruder to dominate the entrance. A second crucifix dangled by his side, its presence a stark counterpoint to the one that swayed overhead, casting eerie shadows over the ancient floorboards. "I presume you've been exploring secrets that ought to remain buried," the newcomer said, his voice smooth as silk, yet laced with venom. Father Brown's heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of their predicament. "What do you want?" he demanded, trying to steady his resolve. The air was heavy with foreboding, and the rain pounded against the roof in dreadful agreement. The spectre raised the crucifix, almost like a weapon. "I want the truth, just like you." "I don't think your motivations align with a quest for truth," Father Brown replied, narrowing his gaze. He gestured toward the intertwined symbols that tethered them to sins, both known and unknown. "What's your business here, Philip?" His voice was firm, yet somehow offered Philip a chance for redemption, a hand extended into the murky depths of his conscience. The dark-haired young man inhaled sharply, wrestling with the rapid tides of emotion washing over him. "You think you know everything?" Philip exploded, his composure finally cracking. "And yet you're trespassing in the sanctity of my family's ruin." His eyes darted towards the intruder, who studied them both with an amused detachment. "You think the cross has awakened the sins of our fathers. Maybe they should stay asleep." Martha, trembling beside Father Brown, clutched the edge of the trunk with white-knuckled urgency. "Maybe you're wrong, Philip," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "What if revealing the truth could free you? It could free Lillian." The atmosphere shifted. Her words held a provocative weight, forcing Philip to grapple not only with his familial ties, but with ethical repercussions that he had long ignored. "I don't need saving," Philip retorted, but the tremor in his voice belied the bravado. "You don't understand what lies beneath the surface of this family. The burdens. They're too heavy to bear." Father Brown interjected, his voice firm yet compassionate. "You confuse weight for worth. People burden themselves with guilt, yet it is not the weight of our sins that defines us, but our willingness to confront them. What have you hidden, Philip? What toll has the legacy of the cross demanded?" Philip flinched at the mention of the cross, his fear morphing into a palpable tension. "It's not what I've hidden," he replied, his voice dropping low. "It's what Lillian chose to uncover." With the room trembling under the weight of their collective breaths, a tense silence descended. The shadows around them seemed to absorb the moment, allowing only the rhythmic patter of rain to intrude upon their thoughts. "Lillian sought the truth, and you know it," Father Brown stated, his tone softening, a gentle breeze over turbulent waters. Whatever lies ahead, whatever darkness surrounds the Felton name, Lillian had a right to confront it. Why do you think she disappeared? Philip's jaw tightened as a flicker of true sorrow crossed his features. She had uncovered things, documents, secrets the family was desperate to keep hidden. I tried to warn her. I never wanted to scare her away. But the more she learned, the more at risk she became. The admission hung heavily in the air, weaving through the thick atmosphere. Philip, Father Brown pressed, you must tell us what she found. Because it is clear this family's legacy is dripping with blood, and shadows are born not from the past, but from the secrets we do not share. The storm surged outside, a savage orchestra of nature's fury that seemed to compel the young man's confession. For a moment, Philip seemed to teeter on the precipice of revelation, his brow furrowed, the crucifix a tangible weight against his chest. It wasn't just about Lillian. It involved people who still live in the manor. There are things about my father, my family, that could shatter everything we know. His eyes, once aflame with defiance, now flickered with fear, resonating with an urgent need to lay burdens down. Tell us what you know, Martha urged, her voice steady, illuminating the darkened corners of uncertainty that wrapped around Philip. It might bring Lillian back. It might even save you. The portraits on the walls seemed to lean closer, silent witnesses observing the unwinding of truths buried beneath centuries of perfumed lies. Slowly, Philip straightened, the dark swirl of emotions drawing back just enough for clarity to pierce through. It's all recorded in the cellar, hidden in an old ledger from my father's dealings with Lillian. His voice broke, and for a fleeting moment, despair washed over him. It's worse than you think. The sacrifices they wrote about were real, literal. With an orchestra of thunder, the attic trembled, a dire prelude to the truth he was fighting to unveil. The shadows danced, an argument of light and dark that bore witness to this crossroads of confession. But revealing that, it could ruin lives, he said at last, in a turmoil twisting his expression. Or it could redeem you, Philip, Father Brown offered gently. Redemption is often birthed from the acknowledgement of our wrongs. Would you rather carry this weight forever? As the tempest continued outside, a flash of lightning illuminated the attic for one brief moment. In that fleeting light, Father Brown spotted something glimmering atop the trunk, a golden locket partially buried beneath dust. He knelt down, retrieving it. Lillian's? He inquired, sensing its significance. Philip faltered, the sight of the locket enacting a painful reminder. It was hers. She left it behind before she disappeared. It might hold the key to her fate. Then we must seek the ledger, Father Brown exclaimed, determination igniting anew. Yet it was clear they had not escaped the clutches of danger. The storm swelled with fury as if echoing the turmoil of their revelations. As they turned towards the door, a loud crash resounded from below, rattling the very walls of Whitfield Manor. Martha's eyes widened, terror creeping across her face. What was that? Father Brown and Philip exchanged a glance, a mutual understanding dawning within them. The realization that their quest for truth had awakened more than just secrets. We need to move quickly, he urged. The truth we are seeking must be unveiled before the darkness closes in on us all. They raced for the attic door, the storm augmenting the urgency of their flight. With each step, the weight of their pursuit burdened their hearts, and as they descended into the unknown, the ominous words of the letter echoed in Father Brown's mind. To protect our lineage, sacrifices are essential. With each heartbeat, the question loomed larger. What price would they pay for the truth? And as they charged down the staircase, an unsettling fear gripped them. A shadow deeper than storm clouds washed over Whitfield Manor, heralding the darkness that lay yet beneath, yearning to be unveiled, awaiting the moment they dared to confront it head-on. Chapter 11. The Last Echo of the Lark. The small village of Malvern was entirely shrouded in darkness as rain poured relentlessly from the heavens, turning the cobblestone streets into swirling rivers. Crouched in the attic of Whitfield Manor, Father Brown felt the atmosphere thrum with tension. He had descended from the attic in pursuit of truth, throwing open the door to the unknown, and out of the shadows, the storm screamed warnings of impending revelation. The manor's decaying walls seemed alive with the echoes of long-buried voices, as if the house was both a guardian and jailer to its own secrets. "Listen," Martha whispered, her damp hair plastered against her forehead, as she crept close to Father Brown, her eyes darting toward the now gaping, dark passageway leading downstairs. The very air thrummed with unease, and just then, a distant sound crept through the howling wind, a melody, soft and haunting. It was the unmistakable song of a lark, so unexpected amidst the cacophony of storm and tumult. It twined its way around them, echoing with longing and nostalgia. "Do you hear that?" Philip asked, stepping forward, the candlelight flickering as though uncertain, mirroring the turmoil in his heart. "The lark. It doesn't belong here. Not now." He stood poised and tense, grappling with memories that the wail of the bird had stirred. Memories of Lillian, how she had loved to whistle her favorite tunes, forever searching for melodies hidden in the depths of the past. "It's a connection, Father," Brown said quietly. "A tether back to something precious, something lost." He peered into the shadows, wrapping the passage, and gestured for the others to follow him down. The rain pounded like a heart, urging them onward. They descended the winding staircase, the wooden steps creaking underfoot like old bones, pressing onward into the living company of ghosts. As they stepped into the entrance hall, a flash of lightning illuminated the space, revealing decorations that seemed both old and new, remnants of the village's history. The once grand setting struck a dissonant chord with the trepidation thrumming through their veins. They moved cautiously through the dimly lit manor steps, the lark's song drifting faintly around them, its notes rising and falling like whispered secrets. "What does it mean?" Martha inquired, bewilderment mixing with determination in her gaze. Philip clenched his fists. "It means something dangerous, something I failed to protect her from." His distress swelled, turning to anger as a memory invaded him. My father. He manipulated Lillian, using her thirst for truth against her. The revelation landed heavily. Father Brown halted, searching Philip's eyes for clarity amid the storm of emotions. "She discovered something that made her a threat, didn't she? There's always a cost to seeking the truth." Philip's face twisted. "I warned her. I tried." "But the lark's song," Martha interjected, her voice trembling. "It's a sign, isn't it? A sign of hope." Father Brown stroked his chin, grounding himself in the moment. Were they chasing fleeting notes or a deeper truth hidden amidst melody and memory? "Hope can be a double-edged sword," Philip replied, his voice taut with grief. "But it can also unveil what is too long concealed." Father Brown stepped closer to a nearby portrait, an oil painting of a lark perched in peace on a branch, surrounded by thick foliage. The lark, in all its vibrant plumage, was a strange comfort in a place of shadows. This must mean something within the context of your family history, Philip. The song of the lark. What did it signify to Lillian? She often said, Philip faltered, fighting emotion, that it was a symbol of freedom. She believed if you could hear a lark sing, you were meant for something bigger than the burdens of this life. Perhaps she was searching for a way out, Father Brown mused, pacing slowly as he scanned the walls of the manor. Buried truth, secret legacies. Perhaps these burdens can turn into chains for those willing to ignore them. The truth ignited in Philip's eyes as he recalled the document Lillian had discovered, a ledger of debts, of merciless bargains, sealed in silence. It was all written there, accounts of sacrifices. My father's hand crafted each word like his sins were chiseled into those pages. And what do you think happened to her when she dug too deep? Father Brown asked, sensing a path forward. Desperation turned into fear. She uncovered too much. I could see her resolve, waning with every turn of the page. The lark song swirled around their candid conversation, nourishing the weight of old resonances that desperately needed addressing. And beneath it all, another revelation loomed as a sudden crash echoed from the shadows of the dining room, filling the manor with palpable fear. "Did you hear that?" Martha gasped, glancing toward the room filled with forgotten memories. Father Brown nodded, stepping cautiously toward the doorway. "Easy now. Stay close." He swept the light of the candle into the dining room's darkness, revealing an overturned chair, the remnants of the past crashing into their fragile present. Scattered papers lay on the floor, resembling fallen leaves, pages dislodged from their stories, each one holding the potential to unravel the web of deceit. "Those papers," Philip shouted, rushing forward but slipping, his foot catching on something beneath the table. "Watch out!" Father Brown's heart raced as he moved to help Philip, illuminating the floor with a spark of candlelight. "What is it?" "It's the ledger. It's here," Philip exclaimed, trembling excitedly. His fingers brushed against the debris, grasping tightly as he retrieved it from the shadows. The leather binding was worn but intact, embossed with the sigils of the family, minuscule reminders of their bloodline, entwined with danger. It was a testament of burdens borne and lives lost. Philip's eyes were alight with both dread and exhilaration as he studied the contents. This is what Lillian found." Father Brown knelt beside him, scanning the pages, recognition dawning. These entries, they detailed transactions, debts, rituals. He caught a glimpse of an all-too-familiar name, dark and shrouded in a sinister aura. "Philip, do you see what this implies?" The rain continued to batter the windows, but within the manor's heart, the echoes of the lark loomed larger. Whatever truth lay hidden in those pages, it now promised to challenge not just Philip's family, but to reshape the very morality of their lives. As the haunting notes of the lark reached their crescendo, Father Brown felt a shift, a tidal wave of understanding poised to crash. Remember, seeking the truth is not merely uncovering facts. Sometimes it challenges the very essence of justice, and you must be prepared for the consequences. Just then, the lark's song faded into the wind, leaving a void where warmth had once thrived. Outside, lightning revealed a figure, lurking in the shadows beyond the manor's facade, watching their every move, a silent harbinger of confrontation yet to come. In that moment, Father Brown understood that the time for secrets was ending. They had unearthed a truth that demanded reckoning, for what had once been a mere echo of melody had transformed into the arrival of fate, an impending storm that would unveil moral conundrums, loyalty, and betrayal. And with the sudden slam of the door behind them, the storm proclaimed that the end of their pursuit was now only the beginning. As Father Brown turned to face Philip, ready to grasp the implications of their discovery, a thrill pulsed through the air, the last echo of the Lark reverberating in their minds, both a warning and a promise, daring them to confront the depths of their quest. Chapter 12. The Mercy of the Murderer. A flash of lightning illuminated the dim hallway of Whitfield Manor, casting jagged shadows that danced across the walls, mimicking the chaos thrumming in Father Brown's heart. Just moments ago, their discovery of the ledger had stirred a maelstrom of emotions. The damp air hung oppressive against the backdrop of the storm outside, merging the cries of distant thunder with the profound silence of the secrets they had unearthed. Now, standing in the dining room, the air thick with dread, Father Brown sensed that the answers they sought were not simply inscribed in ink on parchment, but entangled in the very fabric of human despair. "Father, what does it mean?" Philip's voice trembled, his frame rigid as if poised in the throes of revelation. Father Brown studied his young companion, noting not just the confusion on his brow, but the tightening of his jaw, an indication of the grief and anger brewing just beneath the surface. "The ledger is a testament to sacrifices made, debts owed, lives entwined with darkness," Father Brown replied, his own voice calm despite the tempest brewing inside. Suddenly, with a guttural sound that broke through the howling wind, the door swung wide open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows, drenched by the rain. The candlelight flickered wildly, casting erratic patterns as if the very spirit of the manor recoiled from the intruder. Father Brown's instincts ignited, pulling him into a position of protectiveness. "Identify yourself," he called, the authority in his voice slicing through the tension. The silhouette stepped forward, water pooling at their feet. It revealed Beatrice, Lillian's closest friend, her face a mask of anguish. "Father Brown, you must help me. He's found out." Her voice quivered, mingling fear with frantic determination. "What do you mean?" Father Brown's gaze intensified. "Who has found out? What danger do you face?" "It's Philip's father," she gasped. "He's furious at what Lillian uncovered. I overheard him talking about her." She swallowed, the weight of the revelation nearly too great to bear. A plan, a desperate move. He believes Lillian deserved what she got for meddling. He's prepared to silence anyone who stands in his way. Philip's face contorted with disbelief, hurt emphasized by the storm raging outside. "No, he would not." But Father Brown cut him off sharply. "You do not know the depths of grief when it warps love into something twisted, Philip. Desperation can turn a gentle spirit into a merciless being." At that moment, a resounding crash echoed from the upper levels of the manor, echoing the explosions of thunder above. "We have to move," he urged, taking Beatrice's trembling hand. "If he is indeed on the move, then we must expose him before it's too late." As they fled the dining room, Philip hesitated, torn between his feelings for Lillian, now inextricably linked to his sense of betrayal, and the man whose existence he had clung to for so long. "Philip," Father Brown urged, as they rushed up the staircase, the wood creaking ominously beneath their feet. "We cannot afford to hesitate. This is not just about uncovering the truth. It's about survival." "I have to confront him," Philip declared, suddenly resolute. He's not just my father. He was also Lillian's oppressor. She deserved better than the fate he decreed upon her. In the heat of the emotional tempest, a hard truth pushed through the fog. It was not merely justice they were after, but a reckoning, a confrontation of sins that transcended the law. As they reached the attic door, Father Brown stopped, placing his hands on Philip's shoulders. Before you go charging in like a wounded animal, remember that true justice is neither swift nor violent. Take a moment. Breathe. Think of what you wish to achieve. Philip stared into Father Brown's eyes, a flicker of understanding cutting through his rage. They entered the attic, and the stagnant air was thick with the scent of mildew and memories. Torn pages of Lillian's hidden truths lay strewn across the floor, remnants of a struggle for clarity in a world clouded by shadow. "Look at these," Father Brown said, kneeling beside a cluster of papers illuminated by a single flickering flame. "These are hints leading to a greater truth, a truth that was buried, just as Lillian was." He spread the papers, revealing a series of names, dates, and transactions that painted a sordid tale of manipulation. Each line, another victim of this family's insatiable thirst for power. Power that cost Lillian her life. Her dreams, Philip whispered, realization dawning through the fog of grief. "It's all laid bare here, and yet, what can I do?" "Reveal it. Show the world what lies beneath that veneer of respectability. You became gripped by self-doubt and vengeance, but you can transform that energy into illumination," Father Brown urged, pulling Philip deeper into reflection. "Justice is often slow and meticulous, but it begins today." Yet as a sudden raucous crash sounded below, their world tilted on its axis. The front door of Whitfield Manor slammed open, and the echo of heavy footsteps reverberated through the halls, a foreboding herald of Philip's father. "Run!" Beatrice cried, her voice igniting alarm in Father Brown. The man's shadow stretched across the attic doorway, shrouded in the dark. "You've meddled in my affairs long enough. I will not allow you to ruin my family." Father Brown took a bold step forward. "There is nothing left to ruin, sir. You've lost it all by entangling Lillian in this web of deceit. You wield power like a weapon, but behind that facade is nothing but fear and grief." "I loved her. I tried to save her," the man's voice boomed, trembling with an unsettling mix of anguish and rage. "She spoke truths that no one wanted to hear. I did what I had to do." Philip inhaled sharply, understanding dawning through his horror. "You murdered her. Not out of malice, but out of a twisted sense of love, didn't you?" With that revelation in the air glinting like a blade, silence fell. The tension was so thick, it felt as if time had stilled, caught between justice and mercy, between a son and the monsters he had inherited. Then, just as suddenly, the storm outside roared anew, a clap of thunder severing the moment into fragmented chaos. Shadows loomed larger, and Father Brown sensed a reckoning unresolved, a tether still binding them to a truth yet to be illuminated. "We have to leave now," he commanded urgently, the weight of justice and morality pressing heavy on his heart. They turned to leave the attic, but a single page, fluttering unnoticed in the forgotten corners, caught Father Brown's keen eye. Inscribed notes in Lillian's delicate script, detailing a deeper conspiracy. He reached for it, just as the figure of Philip's father lurched forward, the storm outside mirroring the turbulent passions within. And then, dark as the night, fate hung suspended in the air, demanding they confront the merciless truth of Lillian's legacy. an inheritance they could no longer ignore.